What's going on, creators? Anthony here, and in this video we're going to break down my pro gear recommendations. Okay, so as always, we're going to mention a ton of gear in this video. If any of the concepts, if anything I say is just going over your head and you feel overwhelmed, keep in mind, this is just to let you know what I recommend. All of the tech, all of the science and explanation behind what all this stuff means, it's all covered in other videos in this course. So rest assured, you will learn everything over time. Also, if you didn't watch the last video, I would recommend doing that because we cover a lot of kind of baseline terminology in there. And some of that gear actually carries over into this video. I'm going to try not to repeat myself. I'm just going to assume you watched that last one. All right, diving right in, up first is the camera, and I have 3 different camera recommendations for you. The first camera is the same one from the last video, the Sony ZV-E10. I still think for the price, there is not a camera on the market that can beat the quality that the Sony ZV-E10 provides. The only difference here between the last video is instead of getting just the kit lens, which is the lens that comes with the camera, you're actually going to want to take some of this additional budget you have and buy a more professional lens. Now, lenses can be kind of simple. You have 2 major things to consider. The focal length, which is how zoomed in your camera is. For example, this is me zooming in the camera and changing the focal length. I know that probably wasn't a flattering angle, but that's what focal length is. The higher the number, the more zoomed in your image is going to be. The other factor is the aperture, which is basically this opening at the back of the lens. The more light getting let in, the lower the aperture, and this is good. Not only does it allow us to get better content in lower lit situations, having a low aperture also increases that background blur that so many people want in their content. This is actually where a lot of people shoot themselves in the foot. They spend a lot of money on a good camera like the Sony ZV-E10, but then they use the basic kit lens or they use some other lens that has a high aperture and they're disappointed in their content. Now with lenses, a lot of it comes down to the personal preference, the style of content you want. So what I'd recommend you do is go to bnhphoto.com and just type in Sony APS-C lenses. APS-C stands for the type of sensor that's in the Sony ZV-E1. By typing this in, you pretty much know that all the lenses that are going to pop up will work on the camera that you have. Now from there, if you want a wide angle look like what you're seeing right now, you're going to want to stay on the lower end of focal lengths, like 11 to 15, maybe to 24 millimeters. And then when it comes to the aperture, you want something that is as low as possible, something in the f1.4, f1.8 to f2.8 range. Those are all going to serve you really well and immediately upgrade the look of your content. Now, if you have a little bit more money to spend, the next best camera in the $1,000 to $2,000 price range, in my eyes, is the Canon R8. The Canon R8 all by itself, just the body, is going to run $1,499 at the time of recording this video. Now, the biggest difference between the Canon R8 and the Sony ZV-E10 is the fact that the Canon is a full frame camera. Now, again, we cover this in depth in another video, but basically your camera sensor, it's like the brain of your camera. It's what captures the light data and actually turns that into the image you see. The larger the sensor, the higher quality that image is going to be. You're going to get better quality footage in low light, and it's also going to give you even more of that background blur, similar to what you'd get if you got a lens with a lower aperture. So generally speaking, I try to recommend people get to full frame as soon as they can because it is a massive quality increase. Now the Canon R8 can also film great 1080p footage, and it has super sharp 4K footage. It actually films in 6K and basically downsamples that into 4K, so it is really good 4K. It can also film uncropped 4K 60, so you're gonna have great high quality slow motion. And even better, it has super high quality colors. People already love Canon color science, but it also films 10-bit 422. That's a complicated topic. We have a video on it in the course, but just know the color science coming out of this camera is going to be extremely high quality. Up after that, it has great autofocus similar to the Sony ZV-E10. It has another articulating screen. It's crazy to think that when I got started in this world of content creation, I had to spend $6,000 on the Canon 1DX Mark II to get essentially the same features that you can get out of this camera at $1,500. Now, when it comes to SD cards, batteries, and battery chargers, it's not really worth covering this video. Just know that I'll have specific ones linked in the description of this video. Now, as far as a lens is concerned for this camera, like anything, there are tons of lenses out there. They're all really good, but if I could only recommend one, I would recommend the Canon RF 24 to 70 millimeter f2.8 lens. This is definitely an expensive lens, but if I could only own one, the 24 to 70 millimeter range It's just so versatile. You can basically film all types of content on it. All right, now our third camera recommendation is actually what I'm using right now. My primary camera is the Sony a7S III. For the camera body, this is gonna run you $3,400, and I think it is an amazing camera. I always jokingly say it's probably the last camera I'm ever gonna buy because it does absolutely everything I need and more. The only thing this camera isn't wonderful at is taking photos. It actually has a lower megapixel sensor than most cameras. It's basically a sacrifice this camera makes. It's gonna have slightly lower quality photos, but it enhances the video quality, and that's what the A7S line is for Sony. It's a video specific line of cameras. It still can shoot photos, and for Instagram, social media, I think they're still great quality, but I primarily use it as a video camera, and it shoots absolutely stellar videos. Sony is really known for having amazing quality in low light conditions, so I can film with this outside at night and still get decent quality videos. It can shoot 4K at up to 120 frames per second, so you can get a ton of really slow motion from this camera. And probably the most important thing in my eyes is the fact that this camera has some of the best dynamic range of any camera in the mirrorless lineups. Dynamic range is the amount of detail that you get in the highlights and the shadows of an image at the same time. The more dynamic range, the better. This camera has about 16 to 16 and a half stops, which is really high quality. Now, moving on, we have to talk about the microphones. And of course, all of the microphones from the last video, they're gonna serve you really well. And the difference in audio quality sometimes as you move up the ranks with microphones isn't really worth the price point. Microphones are definitely the one area where I think you can spend just an exorbitant amount of money and not get that much extra quality. It all depends on, essentially how much money you have to spend. And it's also super overwhelming because the more money you're willing to spend, usually you need extra devices and more cables and phantom power and all this stuff. So if you don't want to get overwhelmed by audio, just stick with some of these basic recommendations. Now, aside from the lav mics like the Pop Voice Pro, the Rode Lavalier Go, the Comica Vimo, those are all gonna be really great. The next option up is gonna be the Rode Wireless Pro. This is gonna run you $400. It's gonna come with 2 transmitters so you can record multiple people at once. The wireless range is 850 feet, which is crazy. It has a ton of smart features like automatically turning on and off when your camera turns on and off, something that I always forget to do and I kill my batteries. But most importantly, it has the ability to film audio in 32-bit float. We could talk forever about what 32-bit float is, but it's really the fact that you can just always record audio. You don't need to set your gain or volume levels, and it's just gonna sound good. It's almost impossible to film audio that's too quiet and too loud because you have so much range. The microphone will essentially always capture and collect the data so you can fix it in post. It can remove a lot of stress from the audio process knowing that you just kind of always get the right audio, but you obviously have to pay for that luxury. It is $400. Now, the next option, if you plan on being a content creator, kind of like me, where you're gonna be in an office setting, that would be to buy a shotgun microphone that you can actually just have in your studio at all times. Now, again, there are literally thousands of shotgun microphones out there. A year ago, I did literally hours and hours and hours and hours of research, and I finally decided on the Rode NTG3, which for $700, I think is the best shotgun mic that you can buy. The main difference that you're gonna get between a shotgun microphone and something like the Rode Pro or just the lav mics is the directionality. So a shotgun microphone is really good at recording stuff that's directly in front of it and then rejecting basically everything else. So in terms of audio clarity, you're really gonna get good audio of your subject and basically no background noise. It'll be very clear. Whereas on the flip side, the lav mics, the Rode wireless mics, those are all omnidirectional mics. So they literally record audio in all directions. Again, this is good. You kind of don't need to worry about where that mic is, but it could also get some of that background noise and reduce the quality of your audio. But either way, just to give you an overview of the setup I use, this is the Rode NTG3. It's about $700. After that, it's plugged into the Gator Frameworks desk stand. This is $112. It has an XLR cable built into it, which is nice. That's the actual cable that gets plugged into your microphone. And then that XLR cable feeds into my Zoom H4n Pro. That's a dedicated recording device that can actually take the input of XLR cables. I can record audio directly to that, but then I'd have to synchronize it in post. So instead, what I do is feed another cable from the H4n into my Sony camera. This way, the audio that's being recorded by this microphone feeds directly into my camera and I don't need to do any synchronization. Now, in my setup, the Zoom H4n Pro isn't all that particular. It's just something that I already had. I'd actually actually say the Zoom F3 is a better option if you're starting from scratch. Now you can see what I mean. There's definitely a lot of moving parts when it comes to the microphone setups. For you just getting started, if audio overwhelms you, just stick with those lav mics. Okay, now when it comes to the computer that you're using to actually edit your content, the main difference between this video and the last video is that I would highly recommend you get a computer with at least 32 gigabytes of RAM. I don't care if it's a PC computer or an Apple computer, 32 gigabytes of RAM is where I would say the big leagues kind of start as far as editing machines are concerned. This will easily handle most 4K footage. You can throw some effects, some graphics and stuff like that on the content without it starting to lag. It'll be a pretty seamless process. Now, if I had to force my recommendation on you, that would be a 16-inch MacBook Pro with an M2 sensor and 32 gigabytes of RAM. That's almost the exact computer I have. The only difference is mine has 64 gigabytes of RAM. Either way, it's gonna be a beast of an editing machine. Now, two things about my recommendation. Just because I like Apple does not mean PCs stink. I think PCs are great, and the fact that you can build them and upgrade them over time, phenomenal. But for the sake of simplicity, I do think Apple has one of the easiest machines to recommend. The other thing I want to address is the question that I get asked a lot, which is, should I get a laptop or a desktop computer? Now, for years, I was a desktop guy. I had a really expensive computer that I absolutely loved. The main reason I went with a desktop over a laptop is because I felt the power you could get from a desktop meant it was worth being locked to your desk. However, in 2020, when Apple revolutionized their laptops with the new Apple silicon processors, I really felt like MacBooks and laptops were getting so strong that it almost meant you could just kind of get rid of your desktop, get a laptop, so now you have total flexibility to edit wherever you want in the world. And if you are at home at your desk, you could do what I'm doing right now, which is just have an external monitor that you use to get extra screen real estate. For those of you who I know are gonna ask, this is the LG 40-inch ultra-wide monitor. I absolutely love it. However, I would say if you're really into color correcting your footage, the color science on this display isn't the best. So matching this screen to that screen and then what other people are gonna see on their screens, it's not the easiest thing to do, so there's a little bit of a workflow, but generally speaking, it's still a great monitor for the price. Okay, moving on, we have our lights, and I would recommend the light that I'm actually using right now, which is the Godox SL60. It's honestly not that much more expensive. The light all by itself is gonna run you $139. The main difference between this light and the previous light recommended in the last video is you're gonna get more light output, and it's gonna be a slightly higher quality light, meaning that the actual color of it is gonna be true white compared to potentially having some green or magenta shifts in it. Now, $139 will get you just the light. What I'd actually recommend is going for the $220 kit, which is gonna include the light, the stand, a softbox that works perfectly with your light so you get that beautiful soft light, and it also includes a power cord. You always got to keep in mind when you're buying lights, a lot of times they literally just send you the light, no power cords, no batteries, no nothing. And if you have even more money to spend, I would say just get a second one of those lights, because as far as one light goes, it's pretty much all you need in the Godox SL60. Sometimes though, it's nice to have a second light, which you could use as a backlight. You could shine it on some part of your studio or some other area that you're filming. I would almost always say that two really good lights is better than one amazing light all by itself. And then last but not least, we have our tripod, which fun for us is basically the same recommendations as before. I think the Kaer BV30L is an amazing tripod. It's literally what I still use to this day. The only other addition I would make to this section is another tripod that I'm using right now, which is the Peak Design carbon fiber tripod. This is actually a travel tripod, and if you're not traveling, you can totally tune out, but for most people, you're probably gonna be traveling at some point in time. This tripod is so strong, so light, and so small, it's literally crazy. It basically packs down to the size of a water bottle, but when it fully extends, it works while standing in front of it, and it's strong enough to carry my super heavy slider setup. So unbelievably versatile from that perspective. The only negative is it's not a fluid head tripod. So if you're trying to get really smooth pans and tilts, it's just not what this tripod is for. But again, for YouTube and most other content creation scenarios, it's super light, easy to move around, and just fit in small places. The Peak Design carbon fiber tripod is gonna run you $650 to $700 on Amazon. And that basically does it. If you have a couple $1,000s that you're looking to spend to increase the quality of your content, the gear that we talked about in this video will definitely do that for you. As always, if you feel overwhelmed, we have future videos that are going to explain all these concepts in further detail. I just know that most people coming into our courses, the thing they're most excited to learn about is the gear, so we try to get that out of the way right at the beginning. And in future videos, we're going to fill your brain with so much knowledge about cameras and how to shoot amazing content. It's going to get crazy. Good crazy though. So as always, thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.